She said it like she was talking about the weather. No tremor in her voice, no plea hiding between words, just quiet certainty. You can't save me. I didn't know what she meant then. I just knew the way the sentence hung in the air, heavy enough to stay with me long after she'd turned away. But that wasn't the first time I saw her. The first time was quieter. I work at a small auto repair shop off the highway, the kind of place that smells like old oil and burnt coffee. Most people come in angry or embarrassed. Angry that something broke, embarrassed they don't know why. But she wasn't either. She stood by the hood of her car, arms crossed, sunglasses on though the sky was cloudy. Her posture said she'd been through worse than a dead engine. There was a calmness about her that didn't fit the noise of this place. When I asked what happened, she said, "It just stopped." That was it. No details, no panic, just stopped. Her voice was low, not soft, exactly, but steady, controlled. I could tell she was used to being the calmest person in the room. I tried asking a few more questions, but she didn't meet my eyes until I mentioned the wait time. Then she looked up, and for a second, I forgot how to talk. Gray eyes. Not the dull kind. The kind that looked like they'd seen storms and learned to love the rain. "Take your time," she said. "I'm in no rush." She sat on the metal bench outside, reading from a battered paperback that looked like it had been folded and refolded through too many lonely nights. The sky was turning the color of wet cement, and I remember thinking how she seemed to belong in that kind of light. I don't usually notice people like that. Or maybe I do, but not like this. She wasn't trying to be noticed, and that made it impossible not to. I caught myself wiping my hands too often, brushing the grease off my shirt like it mattered. She didn't look up much, but when she did, there was always a delay, a half-second longer than politeness allowed. It wasn't flirtation. It was awareness. Like we both realized something had shifted, but neither of us had agreed to it. When the rain started, I ran out with an old shop umbrella. She looked up, surprised. "You don't have to," she said. "I know." Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes, but she took the umbrella. Our fingers brushed, barely. It was the kind of touch you can't claim was accidental, even if it was. She watched the rain slide off the metal awning, quiet again. I stood there like an idiot, waiting for her to say something, anything. Instead, she asked, "How old are you?" 25, I said. "Why?" She gave a small laugh, dry as static. "Because you look like you still believe in saving people." And then, that line, "You can't save me." She said it gently, but it felt like a locked door. I wanted to ask why not, but something in her expression stopped me. The kind of look that says don't push this. So I didn't. When her car was ready, she thanked me, slid a folded bill into the tip jar, and left with the same quiet grace she arrived with. But when I went to close up that night, her umbrella was still leaning against the wall, forgotten, or maybe left behind on purpose. And I swear, every time I glanced at it, I could still hear her voice. "You can't save me." Only now, I can't stop wondering, what if she wanted me to try? She came back 2 weeks later. Not for the car, it was running fine, but for something she said she'd forgotten. The umbrella. I found it still propped against the wall, untouched, its handle coated in dust. She stood by the doorway in a navy coat, hair tied loosely like she'd done it in a hurry. Rain tapped softly against the shop windows again, like the weather remembered her, too. "You kept it," she said. I shrugged. Didn't know where to return it. Most people would have tossed it. I guess I'm not most people. She smiled at that, faintly. It wasn't flirtation, just acknowledgement. But that tiny curve at the corner of her lips hit me harder than it should have. We ended up talking longer than we should have. About her car, about how this town never seemed to stop raining, about nothing at all. She leaned against the counter, tracing a line in the dust with her finger, her gaze somewhere far off. Up close, she didn't look quite as untouchable as I remembered. There were small things I hadn't noticed before. The faint smudge beneath her eye, the way she rubbed her thumb over the edge of her ring finger, as if something used to be there. When she caught me looking, she turned the gesture into a stretch, pretending it meant nothing. "Long day?" I asked. "Long year," she said, with a half-laugh that broke too soon. That silence that followed, it wasn't awkward. It was something heavier, like she'd opened a door and immediately wanted to close it again. A delivery guy came in with parts, breaking the moment. She stepped back, adjusting her coat. I should let you get back to work. You don't have to, I said before thinking. Her eyes flicked to mine, curious, maybe cautious. You always this generous with customers? Only the ones who leave umbrellas behind. That got a real laugh out of her, soft, but genuine. It didn't last long, but I held on to it anyway. She asked if I could look at a small noise her car had been making. I told her to pull around back. The engine sounded fine, but I took my time checking. She stood nearby, arms folded against the chill. When I handed her the keys, her fingers brushed mine again, not accidental this time. The air between us changed, subtle but undeniable. You always this quiet? She asked. Only when I don't know what to say. That earned another small smile, but it faded as fast as it came. She looked away, toward the parking lot slick with rain, and said, almost to herself, careful with that. You're too young to carry other people's weight. Then she got in the car and drove off, leaving a faint scent of rain and something floral behind. I told myself it was nothing, just conversation, just coincidence. But that night, I caught myself replaying her laugh, the real one, and the way she said careful, like she'd meant it more than she wanted to. And for the first time, I started wondering what exactly she was trying to protect me from. The third time I saw her wasn't planned. She called near closing, said her headlights had gone out, and asked if I was still around. I should have told her to come in the morning. Instead, I found myself saying, yeah, I'm here. By the time she arrived, the storm had started. Sheets of rain hammered the tin roof, thunder rolling close enough to rattle the tools on the wall. She parked crooked, half under the awning, wipers still beating like a pulse that couldn't calm down. She stepped out without an umbrella this time. You're soaked, I said. She laughed under her breath. Seems to be a pattern with us. Her hair clung to her face, her coat glistening. She didn't shake it off, just stood there for a moment, catching her breath like she wasn't sure if she wanted to come inside or stay in the rain. I handed her a towel from the workbench. She hesitated before taking it, her fingers brushing mine. Thanks, she said quietly. I told myself to look away, to focus on the car, the wiring, the job. But I could feel her behind me, moving around the small space, her presence louder than the storm. We talked, not about anything important. Music, the weather, how the world feels quieter after 9 p.m. She mentioned her daughter once, offhand, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. I didn't ask more. There was a small moment when she leaned over to check something on my phone, a photo of a wiring diagram. Our shoulders touched. Barely, but it was enough to throw off my focus completely. She must have felt it too, because she froze, not pulling away, not leaning in, just still. You should really get better lighting in here, she murmured, her voice low, close enough to feel against my jaw. I like the quiet, I said. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine, close enough that I could see the tiny reflection of the stormlight in them. Something in that silence shifted. She looked at me like she wanted to say something. Then her phone buzzed. The sound was sharp, unwelcome. She glanced at the screen, the color draining from her face for half a second. Sorry, she whispered, turning away to answer. Her voice dropped, low and cautious. I couldn't hear the words, only the tone, that brittle calm she carried like armor. The call didn't last long. When she hung up, she kept her eyes on the floor. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah. Then softer, no. It's just complicated. I nodded, not pushing. She gave a small, almost apologetic smile. You shouldn't have to listen to this. I don't mind, I said. I'd rather hear the truth than silence. That made her look at me, really look. And for a moment, I thought she might actually tell me something. But instead, she took a slow breath, stepped back, and said, You're too kind for your own good. The headlights were fixed. She stood by the door, keys in hand, but didn't move. I opened my mouth to say stay a little longer, or maybe you don't have to go yet, but the words caught somewhere between my chest and throat. She noticed, smiled faintly. Then she reached out, almost absently, and brushed her thumb against my cheek. A small gesture, quick as lightning, and whispered, Good night. The door shut behind her, leaving me standing there, heart stuttering in the echo of something that almost happened, but didn't. She came by again a week later. No car trouble, no reason. Just a quiet knock on the shop door long after closing. When I opened it, she stood there, hands buried in her coat pockets, eyes rimmed with exhaustion. She didn't speak at first. Neither did I. I was driving around, she said finally. Ended up here. The rain hadn't started yet, but the air had that thick, waiting stillness before a storm. I stepped aside. She walked in slowly, glancing around like she was remembering the last time we stood in this space. The shop lights were low. The radio played something faint, more static than melody. I offered her coffee. It had been sitting for hours, bitter and burnt, but she nodded anyway. We sat on the edge of the workbench, a foot apart. She wrapped her hands around the mug, but didn't drink. I should stop coming here, she said after a long pause. Then why don't you? Her laugh was small, brittle. That's the question, isn't it? She set the cup down carefully, watching the steam fade. You remind me of something I used to be. Before I got tired. Before everything started feeling heavy. I wanted to tell her she didn't look tired. But she did. Not the kind you fix with sleep, the kind that lives in your bones. I don't know what this is, I said, the words slipping out before I could stop them. She looked at me, her expression unreadable. Neither do I. We sat there, surrounded by the sound of machines cooling down, the faint tick of rain starting on the roof. You're too young to understand, she said quietly. Then explain it. She shook her head. You see kindness as rescue. You think if you care enough, it changes something. But it doesn't. It just makes you the one who hurts later. Her voice cracked on that last word. Barely, but I caught it. I wanted to reach for her hand, but I didn't. I just let the silence stretch until it started to ache. Maybe it's not about saving anyone, I said. Maybe it's just about not letting someone drown alone. That made her turn, really turn, eyes sharp, glistening. You think I'm drowning? No, I said softly. I think you stopped trying to swim. She stared at me then, long enough that I forgot to breathe. There was something breaking behind her calm, something fragile clawing its way to the surface. When she finally spoke again, her voice was a whisper. You shouldn't say things like that. Why not? Because they sound like hope. And that was the moment everything changed. Not because we touched or confessed anything, but because she couldn't hide behind indifference anymore. We just sat there, two people caught in the quiet space between wanting and knowing better, until the rain started coming down hard enough to drown out the words neither of us could say. Before she left, she stopped at the door, her back still to me. Don't wait for me, she said. I don't even wait for myself anymore. And then she was gone, leaving the air heavy with everything we hadn't done, and one truth I couldn't unhear. I didn't hear from her for nearly a month. The rain stopped, summer began to press against the windows, and the shop felt emptier in a way I couldn't justify. Every car that pulled in, every set of footsteps outside, I kept thinking it might be her. It never was. Then, one afternoon, she called. Do you still fix things that don't want to be fixed? Her voice sounded thinner over the line, quieter. I told her to come by. She didn't answer, just hung up. But an hour later, she was there. She looked different. Lighter somehow, but not happier. Like she'd made peace with something that still hurt. I shouldn't have disappeared, she said as she stepped inside. I just needed distance. From myself, mostly. I nodded, unsure what to say. She took a folded envelope from her coat pocket and placed it on the counter. The paper was creased, edges softened from being opened and closed too many times. It's not for you, she said. It's for someone who used to be. She slid it closer. I hesitated before touching it. It was for my husband, she said, voice steady but low. I never sent it. He died before I could. My hand froze halfway to the letter. I wrote it the night before he left. We'd fought about something small. I said I didn't need saving, that he made me feel like a problem he could fix. He went for a drive and never came back. Her eyes didn't water, but her hands trembled as she smoothed the paper flat. When I said that to you, she continued, you can't save me. I didn't realize I was repeating myself. Maybe I just wanted to see if the world would give me a different answer this time. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. I wanted to reach out, to take the letter, to take the weight she carried, but I didn't move. I just listened. She gave a faint smile, brittle and brave. You remind me of him sometimes. The way you look at people like you already decided they're worth something. I didn't know if that was a compliment or a warning. The letter sat between us, silent and fragile. She finally pushed it toward me. Keep it, she said. Maybe you'll read it when you start believing you can't change anyone. It's proof that you can love someone deeply and still lose them anyway. I didn't open it. Not then. She turned to leave, but before she reached the door, she stopped. I thought I came here because I missed him, she said, her back still to me. But now I think I came because I was afraid I might miss you instead. The door opened, lights spilling across the concrete floor, and I caught my reflection in the window, holding a letter that wasn't mine, and a silence that suddenly was. It was late again when she returned, the kind of late where even the highway sounded half asleep. The shop lights were off, but I was still there, sitting on the floor by the tool cabinet, the letter open beside me. I didn't mean to read it, but I did. And once I started, I couldn't stop. It wasn't a love letter, not really. It was an apology, a plea for space, written by someone who didn't know that space could turn permanent. Every line bled with the kind of regret that changes the shape of a person. When the door creaked open, she didn't look surprised to find me there. Just tired. So you read it, she said softly. I nodded. I didn't mean to. I know. She walked in slowly, stopping beside me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The hum of the old fridge in the corner filled the silence. You wrote like you were already mourning him, I said. She leaned against the workbench, arms crossed. I was. He just hadn't died yet. There was no bitterness in her tone, only a strange calm, the kind that comes after too many storms. She sat down next to me, close enough that I could feel the warmth of her shoulder. I kept telling myself I wasn't trying to replace him, she said, that I just liked talking to you, that it was harmless. Her hand brushed against mine, light, tentative. Not a reach, just a test. It isn't harmless, she whispered. I know. We stayed like that for a while, close but still pretending it meant nothing. The smell of oil, rain, and stale coffee lingered in the air, grounding us in a moment that didn't feel real. I keep thinking about what you said, she murmured after a long pause. About not letting someone drown alone. I turned to her, and her eyes met mine, steady, unguarded for the first time. I think I've been holding my breath for years. I didn't answer, just reached over and took her hand, slowly, as if asking permission without words. She didn't pull away. There was no kiss, no confession, just stillness, heavy and fragile, like a secret the world wasn't supposed to hear. She leaned her head against my shoulder, exhaling softly. I don't know what happens next, she said. Neither do I. Outside, thunder rolled far off, softer now, more distant than before. We sat there, two people who had stopped pretending not to care, listening to the quiet rhythm of something breaking and rebuilding all at once. When she finally spoke again, it was almost a whisper. Maybe saving isn't the point. Maybe it's just not letting go. I tightened my hand around hers, and for the first time, she didn't flinch. That was all. No grand ending. No promise. Just two breaths in sync, and the quiet collapse into something that felt like truth. It's been almost a year since that night in the shop. I still think about the sound of rain on the roof, the way she leaned her head against my shoulder like it was the first time she'd let herself rest. Nothing dramatic happened after that. No confessions, no declarations. We just didn't walk away. People talk about love like it's a decision, a single moment where everything clicks. But I think it's quieter than that. It's 1,000 small decisions not to leave, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it doesn't look the way you expected. She still comes by sometimes, though less now. Sometimes it's to drop off coffee. Sometimes she just sits while I work, saying nothing. We don't need to fill the silence anymore. Once, I asked her if she ever finished grieving her husband. She said, grief doesn't finish. It just finds somewhere softer to live. And then she smiled at me, not the careful kind she used to wear, but something real. If you saw us from the outside, you'd probably say nothing happened between us. No one would notice the way she lingers a second longer before leaving, or how I keep a cup for her by the coffee machine, one she never asked for, but never returns. We don't belong to each other. Not really. But somehow, What we share feels like belonging anyway. Unspoken, steady, unlabeled. And I've changed too. I used to think love was about fixing, about being the one who made things better. But she taught me that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stand beside someone while they figure out how to breathe again. Now, when people come into the shop with broken cars, with that same helpless look, I don't rush to fix everything. I just listen first. Sometimes that's all anyone really wants. A few weeks ago, she found the umbrella again, the same one she'd left here the first day we met. She laughed when she saw it, said she didn't even like that umbrella anymore. Then why keep it? I asked. She thought about it for a second, then said, because it reminds me that not everything you forget stays lost. And that's when I realized something. I don't think she ever wanted to be saved. She just needed someone who didn't run from the parts of her that couldn't be. Sometimes I still hear her voice in my head, "You can't save me." But now, I think what she really meant was, don't try to fix me. Just see me. And maybe that's all love really is, seeing someone exactly as they are, and staying anyway. If you've ever loved someone who didn't make it easy, someone who made you question what love should look like, then you already know what I mean. Tell me, would you have stayed?